They never wanted this information to reach you, and they didn't just hope you'd miss it, they spent billions making sure you never discovered it. Because the second you understand these 5 core truths, the second you see how the system really works, everything shifts. The way you look at money changes, the way you see work changes, even the way you value time changes, and that's exactly what threatens them, because their influence, their wealth, their entire structure survives only as long as you stay unaware of what I'm about to explain. For the past 7 years, I've been studying how ultra-wealthy people actually build their fortunes, not what they claim in interviews, not the motivational quotes they post online, but what they do with their money when no one is watching. I went through hundreds of financial disclosures, studied complex tax setups, traced capital movements across borders, and spoke with people who've worked inside these financial systems. And what I discovered completely changed my understanding, because billionaires don't become rich the way most people believe, and they definitely don't get rich the way they tell you to do it. They're playing an entirely different game, with different rules, a game you were never told even existed. And here's the critical part. This isn't just interesting information. These are the exact mechanisms, the real strategies that separate people who trade hours for income from people who make money work for them. By the end of this video, you'll clearly see how the system is structured to keep most people stuck. And more importantly, you'll know how to step outside of it. But you need to watch this till the end, because stopping after Secret 3 gives you awareness, not control. It's Secrets 4 and 5 where everything connects. That's when the full picture becomes clear. That's when you realize why the story you've been told your entire life was never complete. So let's begin with the version you already know. You've been told that success comes from working hard, saving consistently, investing through retirement plans, buying a home, and spending less than you earn. You've been taught that financial freedom comes from education, a stable job, discipline, and patience. You've been led to believe that wealthy people simply worked harder, sacrificed more, and took bigger risks than everyone else. But every part of that narrative serves one purpose: to keep you exactly where you are. Because while you're focused on effort, savings, and following the rules, the ultra-wealthy are operating on a completely different level, and they're often doing it using other people's money. Secret number 1, billionaires don't exchange time for income. They build and control assets that generate cash, whether they're awake or asleep. It sounds simple, but understanding this deeply is the foundation of everything that follows. When you go to work, you are converting hours of your life into money, and that single difference changes everything. You receive a salary, you're compensated for the hours you show up, the tasks you finish, and the output you deliver. The second you stop working, the income shuts off. This is known as earned income, and it's the most restricted, most fragile, and most heavily taxed way to build wealth. Why? Because it has a hard limit. There are only 24 hours in a day. You can improve your skills, you can get promoted, you can change companies, but eventually you hit a wall. Your time is limited, your energy is limited, and your body has an expiration date. This is the real trap. You are the asset, and when the asset stops functioning, the cash flow disappears. Now compare that to how the ultra-wealthy operate. Jeff Bezos isn't standing in an Amazon warehouse, shipping packages. Elon Musk isn't on the factory floor assembling cars. Warren Buffett isn't answering phones at Berkshire Hathaway. They don't sell labor, they own systems. They control businesses, equity, property, technology, and intellectual rights. Assets that generate income, whether they're awake or asleep, healthy or sick, working or traveling. When Bezos is sleeping, Amazon keeps earning. When Musk steps away, Tesla production continues. When Buffett is relaxing, his investments keep compounding. This is often called passive income. But that phrase doesn't even come close to explaining the advantage. It's not just passive, it's scalable, it's limitless, and it's completely disconnected from personal effort. Here's a number that puts things into perspective. In 2023, the average worker earned around $54,000 a year. That breaks down to roughly $26 an hour. Every single hour of your life exchanged for $26. Now look at the same year, Elon Musk's net worth increased by roughly $95 billion. Let's translate that. If you worked 24 hours a day, every day, no sleep, no breaks, no days off for 2,000 years, earning $26 an hour, you still wouldn't make what Musk gained in just 1 year. Not because he worked harder, not because he's smarter than everyone else, but because he owns assets that compound. Your income grows in a straight line, his wealth grows exponentially, you're adding, he's multiplying, and that gap widens every single year. Here's the part no one explains. Musk didn't begin with billions, Bezos didn't begin with billions. They began with an understanding of this first principle. The objective is not to earn money. The objective is to own things that produce money. Once that clicks, everything changes. You stop asking, how can I make more income? and you start asking, like, what assets can I acquire? You stop exchanging time for cash and start using cash to reclaim time. This is the first door, and most people never even realize it exists. Secret number 2, billionaires treat debt as a strategic tool. You are taught that debt is dangerous, that it should be avoided at all costs, that being debt-free is the ultimate goal. And for most people, that advice is correct, because the debt available to the average person is designed to drain wealth, not build it. Credit cards charging 20% plus, student loans, car financing, high-interest mortgages. This is consumer debt, these are liabilities, and they keep people stuck. Every month, that kind of debt quietly pulls money out of your pocket and sends it straight to financial institutions. It doesn't help you grow, it slowly drains you. This is the type of debt that keeps people stuck. But this is not the kind of debt the ultra-wealthy use. They use leverage, and leverage plays by an entirely different set of rules. Let me show you why this matters. Here's where things get interesting. While you might be earning around $24,000 a year in cash flow, the assets themselves are also increasing in value. Real estate on average grows by about 3 to 4% annually. On $500,000 worth of property, that's an additional $15,000 to $20,000 per year in appreciation. So now you're doing 2 things at once. You're collecting income and you're building equity. And this is where the strategy accelerates. As the properties rise in value, you can refinance them. You extract that built up equity without triggering taxes and use it as capital to acquire more assets. Now the cycle begins. Now growth starts stacking on top of growth. This is how large fortunes are created. Debt becomes a lever that multiplies capital instead of destroying it. And it's applied again and again and again. But there's a deeper layer most people never hear about. Billionaires borrow against their assets, but they almost never sell them. This detail changes everything. Imagine owning $200 billion worth of company stock. If you sell it for cash, you immediately trigger capital gains tax. At long-term rates, that can exceed 30%, depending on location. On $200 billion, that's tens of billions lost instantly. So instead, they take a different route. They walk into a bank and say, these shares are my collateral, lend me a fraction of their value. The bank agrees because the loan is backed by assets worth several times the amount borrowed. The billionaire receives billions in cash, pays relatively low interest, never sells, never triggers a taxable event. And when structured properly through business entities, those interest payments can often be deducted. So while the average person is told to eliminate debt and rush to pay off loans, the ultra-wealthy are borrowing massive sums against appreciating assets, living on that money, and paying minimal taxes. This strategy has a name: buy, borrow, die. You acquire assets, you borrow against them to fund your lifestyle, and you never sell. When those assets are passed down, their value is reset to current market prices. All past gains disappear for tax purposes. No capital gains, no appreciation taxes. Wealth transfers to the next generation almost untouched. This is how powerful families preserve wealth for decades. And yes, it's completely legal. Secret number 3, billionaires don't interact with the tax system the way you do. In many cases, they barely pay income tax at all, not because they're breaking the rules, but because the rules are written to benefit them. Let me share a statistic that puts this into perspective. An investigative report analyzing IRS data found that America's wealthiest individuals increased their wealth by hundreds of billions of dollars over several years, yet paid only a small fraction of that amount in federal income taxes. Their effective rate was just a few percent. Meanwhile, someone earning around $60,000 a year often pays between 18 and 22% once all taxes are included. That means working people are paying several times more, proportionally, than the ultra-wealthy. How is that possible? Because the tax system doesn't primarily tax wealth, it taxes income. It taxes income, and here's the key difference. Billionaires don't earn money the traditional way. They don't rely on big paychecks, they don't draw large salaries. In fact, some of the most powerful CEOs officially earn almost nothing on paper. Their wealth grows through ownership, through shares, through assets increasing in value, and that growth isn't taxed until the asset is sold. But as you already know, they don't sell. They borrow. Now here's where the system gets even more one-sided. The tax code is packed with deductions and incentives that only exist if you own businesses or assets. Wage earners don't qualify. One of the most powerful tools is depreciation. Imagine purchasing a commercial property for $10 million. The tax system allows you to spread that cost over decades. On paper, you can deduct hundreds of thousands every year, even if the building is actually increasing in value. So in reality, you're earning rental income. Your asset is appreciating, but on paper, you're showing a loss. That loss wipes out taxable income. Result, no income tax. This is how real estate investors live extremely well while reporting negative income. Perfectly legal. Then there's a rule most employees will never benefit from. If you build a company, hold your shares long enough, and later sell, a massive portion of the profit can legally avoid taxes altogether. Millions in gains, untouched. These benefits do not exist for people paid by the hour. They exist for owners, for investors, because the system was designed that way. There are also special investment zones created to encourage development. If capital gains are reinvested into certain designated areas, taxes can be delayed for years, hold long enough, and future growth can become completely tax-free. Large fortunes have flowed into these programs, turning tax bills into more assets. Then there's one of the most controversial advantages of all. In the finance world, some managers earn hundreds of millions every year, but instead of being taxed like normal income, their compensation is treated as investment gains. Lower rates, massive savings. This single rule saves the ultra-wealthy billions annually. And here's the part that should frustrate you. While these strategies reduce tax rates to single digits, ordinary people get scrutinized for small deductions. That brings us to secret number 4. Billionaires don't just control capital, they control information. This is the one most people never see, yet it may be the most powerful of all. Because if you shape the information people consume, you shape how they think. And if you shape how they think, you influence what they believe, support, and accept. The ultra-wealthy understand this deeply. They don't only build companies, they build networks of influence over media, over narratives, over policy. They help decide which stories are amplified, which ideas feel normal, and which possibilities feel out of reach. So let's start with a simple question. Who controls the media? At the very top of this system sit billionaires. They don't just own companies, they own the channels through which information flows. Major news networks, global newspapers, financial data platforms. These aren't side projects, they are tools of influence, because when you watch the news or read a headline, you're not just receiving information, you're absorbing a version of reality shaped by someone else's interests, and those interests are remarkably consistent. Lower taxes on extreme wealth, less power for labor, looser regulations, government support for their industries, and above all, they want you to believe the system is balanced and fair. This is why financial media constantly pushes the same message: invest through retirement accounts, buy broad market funds, be patient, think long term. And to be clear, that advice isn't wrong, but it conveniently benefits the people already at the top. Every dollar you put into public markets increases demand. Higher demand raises prices. Higher prices inflate the massive stock positions they already control. Your savings slowly grow. Their fortunes explode. At the same time, they're using strategies rarely mentioned on television: private equity, venture capital, highly leveraged acquisitions, sophisticated tax structures, because if everyone understood those strategies, the advantage would shrink. But influence doesn't stop at media. Billionaires also finance research organizations that promote their preferred policies. These groups publish reports supporting lower taxes, fewer regulations, and reduced oversight. Those reports get quoted by journalists, referenced by politicians, presented as neutral analysis, but they're not neutral. They're persuasive tools. Then there's lobbying. Every year, billions are spent influencing lawmakers. Access is purchased, legislation is shaped, exceptions are written into law. When major tax changes are discussed, it's not ordinary citizens in the room. It's teams of lawyers, accountants, and policy experts representing concentrated wealth. Here's a clear example. Certain financial industries spent decades fighting to preserve special tax treatment. They invested millions in lobbying and political contributions. The outcome? The rules stayed intact, millions spent, billions scammed. Hey, that's not corruption, that's strategy. And it explains why meaningful reform rarely happens. But the deepest level of influence is cultural. Wealthy donors fund universities, endow departments, sponsor research. They help decide which topics are explored, which ideas are considered reasonable, and which viewpoints are dismissed. Challenge concentrated wealth too directly, and you're labeled extreme or unrealistic. The limits of acceptable debate are quietly defined by the people who benefit from keeping things as they are. And finally, there's philanthropy, huge donations, global praise, tax advantages, but also control, because those funds are directed by the donor's priorities, not by democratic decision-making. Entire education systems, health initiatives, and development strategies can be shaped by a single individual's vision. This is power without elections, influence without accountability, Money transformed into control, which brings us to secret number 5. Billionaires don't think in years, they think in generations. This is the final secret, and it's the one that truly separates billionaires from everyone else. Most people plan inside a single lifetime. How much can I earn before retirement? How much can I save? What will my life look like? The ultra-wealthy don't ask those questions. They're building systems designed to last a century, 2 centuries, forever. They're not creating income, they're creating dynasties. And they use legal structures built specifically for that purpose. The first is the family trust. When most people die, their assets pass through probate, get hit with estate taxes, and then get divided up. At high levels, that tax can wipe out nearly half of what you built. Billionaires avoid this entirely. They move assets into long-term trusts decades in advance. The trust owns the assets, not the individual. On paper, the billionaire no longer owns the wealth, but in reality, they control the rules. They decide how the money is invested, who benefits, when distributions happen. And because the trust owns everything, when the founder dies, there's no estate tax triggered. The wealth transfers intact. But it doesn't stop there. In certain jurisdictions, trusts can last indefinitely. Not for a lifetime, not for 2 generations, forever. That means wealth can compound for children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, centuries into the future. To understand how powerful this is, consider this. Place a modest 8-figure sum into a long-term trust. Let it grow steadily. Over decades, it becomes hundreds of millions. Over a century, it becomes billions. And because it never leaves the structure, it largely avoids estate taxation entirely. This isn't theory, this is how some of the oldest wealthy families in history preserved their fortunes. Not through luck, through structure. Then there's the private family office. Once wealth reaches a certain level, you stop using normal advisors, you build an internal organization, investment professionals, tax specialists, legal experts, estate planners, all working for one purpose, protecting and expanding wealth across generations. They access private deals unavailable to the public. They structure ownership globally, they optimize control and taxation at every layer. This is a financial system most people never see. And here's the most subtle move of all. Billionaires often don't technically own the companies they control. Ownership sits inside trusts. The trust controls voting rights, boards answer to trustees. Even after death, the structure continues operating according to the original blueprint. Control without ownership, power without presence. This is how certain families retain influence over major corporations for generations. And there's one final difference that matters more than anything else. Billionaires don't teach their children to chase jobs, they teach them to manage systems. From an early age, they learn how assets work, how balance sheets speak, how deals are structured. By adulthood, they're already inside networks that took decades to build. They don't start from zero, they inherit momentum. Now here's what all of this means for you. You were told that wealth comes from hard work, saving, and discipline. And while those things matter, they are not how massive wealth is built. Real wealth is built through assets, leverage, tax strategy, information control, and long-term thinking. Those are the 5 secrets. And here's the most important part. These principles aren't exclusive. You may not use them at billionaire scale. Not yet. But the rules are the same. You can start acquiring income-producing assets, one rental, one business, one investment that works without your labor. You can use debt intelligently, not recklessly, but strategically. You can structure your finances instead of letting taxes drain them. You can educate yourself beyond headlines. You can think beyond a single lifetime. Even if you're starting from zero, you can become the first generation that builds instead of just survives. The system is tilted, but it's not hidden. Once you see the rules, you can play differently. You won't become a billionaire overnight, but you can stop being a pawn. You can build wealth that compounds, wealth that lasts, wealth that gives you freedom. So the real question is this: will you keep trading your life for a paycheck, hoping it somehow works out? Or will you start playing a longer game? Now you know what they know. You've seen the 5 secrets. What you do next determines everything. If this video changed how you see money, subscribe. Because the next video exposes the biggest lie in personal finance, the one most advisors will never admit because it would destroy their business. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you there.